So with our lovely Miss W, there was a couple little noises going on, so a little distracting here and there. But I wanted to work a little bit with the weight behavior. Nice job, cuteness. So I'm just going to feed her for that. She's a little bit flustered. There was some garage type noises, like with a door closing and a truck beeping and backing up. So it was a little bit flustering for the little lady. Ready? Find it. Ebba, if you want, you can just put those on the other chair. Her coat was slipping off her chair. Ready? Find it. So with working with weights, if for right now your puppy were a little overwhelmed and you're just working on getting them to do some lovely little recalls and some check-ins, you could again start off with a find it and then go, Winnie, come, and get her in the groove of coming to you with that lovely recall word. If you guys prefer the word here versus come, just let me know if you have different slogans. So again, we're going to do a little find it. And then from there, I'm going to call her into me and go again, Winnie, come. Yes. Remember too that whenever working with any skills, if you find your puppy can do an amazing, let's say 3 or 4 reps or 15 reps, whatever it might be, is make sure that you're keeping it short and sweet, where it's not you're doing it so long that your puppy almost wants to give up practicing. Winnie, come. Yes. And we got some funny noises again in the building, but she's doing a real good job. Find it. So the benefit of starting this way, yes, is you can start to, again, you'll see that a lot of our practice is almost like foundation behaviors, where it's like you're learning your ABCs before you can read those words or create even sentences. So remember, you got to start somewhere where the puppy feels it's attainable, comfortable, and something they can grasp. So again, when she's getting more comfortable, I might tell her to wait, have her hold it for a second or two, and then Winnie, come, and then bring her into my space. So you see, just like when I was working with stay, we want to think about duration, distances, and distraction. So those are your 3 Ds when practicing with your babes. Obviously, when working with some of these weights, if you're finding she's really having a rough time, make it softer, make it easier, and lower the criteria. So again, I might get that little sit. I'm going to tell her to wait, give her a second or two, and if she wiggles, I'm going to reset her up. Set her up so everybody can kind of see her from the side. So again, wait, and then Winnie, come. You'll see that I'm not adding distance on top of this for starters. If she was having a hard time holding back with me even just a few feet from her, adding even more space will make this even harder for her. So we might go, Winnie, come, and just work that lovely little recall first. Then we're going to go ahead and see if we can get that lovely little sit again. Tell her to wait for just a moment. And then from there, she holds it 1 to 3 seconds, whatever is tolerant for her. And then Winnie, come. If she's doing really well with the time frame, you could start to implement some distractions or some movement and things like that. So you could get that lovely sit, tell her to wait, and maybe you take a step to the side, she holds it, and then Winnie, come. So again, she's a little bit of a wiggler. I know Mom has mentioned that she does shiver and because she's a little bit nervous. So there have been, like I mentioned, in this obviously environment, it's all very new to her. She is really getting some very fluid behavior and she's taking food very readily and she is bouncing back from the weirdness that is the environment. So remember that when you're practicing, you're trying to build resilience in a puppy, you want to be very careful we're not flooding. So flooding, for example, if she really has a hard time with a lot of novelty, I'm not going to just leash her up and drag her through something new and hope she makes it. So if let's say there's moments where a puppy says, no, I can't do it, or this is overwhelming, I'm going to always try to lower the criteria, bring it back to something softer, or if it's a moment where it's way past my puppy's comfort range or theirs, help them by feeling safe in another little section of the environment. So obviously when at home, if you're trying to go for a real world walk, but Miss W is like, gee, this is really spooky, and she's shutting down, remember that after 12 weeks, you're not really, you are doing some exposure and she is learning, but it won't be to the same level where she would have been much more receptive to novelty from 12 to 16 weeks and below. When you're dealing with a puppy that's past that point, you're now dealing with a puppy that is starting to realize their environment could be dangerous and new things could be spooky. And then depending on how she responds to things genetically, so maybe she's more dispositioned to being more of a nervous girl because who knows what may have gone on when she was itty bitty, or maybe her parents were maybe also also a little bit nervous. So sometimes there's the genetic aspect of things. There's the nurture as well. So what has or hasn't she been exposed to when she was little? So if most of her environment has just been home and every once in a while an occasional vet visit, then of course going to new places will be really flustering for her. To look at it from our perspective is if, let's say, when you're trying something new, you tend to go into something with anxiety or a little bit of, butterflies, you might always view something novel that way first until you start to feel safe again. So the same thing for the puppy is, even though there's certain things she could get more comfortable with depending on how we work it, then that means we could use again some counter conditioning and some other really helpful skills for her to help her have more of a bounce back or a comfortable feeling around those things. But if, again, any of this feels confusing or you have a question or concern, I know you'd mentioned maybe even doing some one-on-ones could be another great way to dive into more behavior help for her. So as she's maturing and hitting adolescence, we're not running into behavioral trouble from our perspective. Ready? So let's say we get another little sit from Miss W. Sit. I'm going to tell her, actually, like, lady, I lost one in the crack. I know these darn schnacks are very good for going in cracks. I'll maybe try and bring her a little further from the distraction, tell her to wait, and then Winnie, come. But remember, as she's doing really well with some of these weights, you could add more distance or more time or maybe some movement. But if, let's say, you try any of those and she's failing, which means that she gets up and breaks, that is her only way to say either one, I don't understand, two, I'm feeling confused or flustered, or the environment might be too trying or stimulating. So remember that when your puppy is again giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. So we'll get that sit. Try to wait. We'll see if we can get a little bit of a step. And then we'll go, Winnie, come. Nice. So if you're getting confused, you or her, between the differences between a stay and a wait, view stay as in stationary, and while they're stationary, that's what's giving them their reinforcements. So stationary like a statue or stay like a statue, and I think about it as almost like freeze tag with room service. So as the dog is stationary, that's the only time they're getting their reinforcement for the stay, especially in the beginning. For the wait, they're being fed for breaking from the spot. So while they're sitting and waiting, they get nothing unless the sits were very hard or the downs. You could feed for those. Then we'd have her wait, and I'd go, Winnie, come. And the leaving the spot from the wait is what gives you your paycheck. So coming to you, maybe going and retrieving an item, or leaving their spot and then going to grab their food dish. Waits can be great for example, proper hellos. So waiting before going and visiting somebody or something. Wait could also be wait until you hop out of the vehicle. Wait before going and grabbing your meal. I know you had mentioned that she's having some trouble with the car travel. I will try and send along a few more resources. I know in the beginning when we had sent along some of the original content, at the very bottom of the email, there were 2 links. One of them was a video as well for car travel and how you can help them feel better while in the vehicle or near the vehicle. So also some puppies are struggling with travel because the car itself is spooky. So remember that when your babe is going in the car itself, even though you might be bringing them somewhere fun, the car is still the spooky thing we're in until we escape the car to go do those fun things. So I know some folks have said, oh, just drive them somewhere fun, and then they'll start to associate the car with that adventure. They find the adventure to be the fun part, but the car could still be just as trying or scary. So if you're finding that your babe is really struggling with car travel, check out that video. If you can't find it, just let me know and I'll send you the video again. Though I would highly recommend, I know Zeus is also struggling with the car, so make sure that car travel doesn't just happen when you need to actually get somewhere. So if she's like, ooh, stinky sneakers, nice job, cuteness. Nice visiting. So if the only time you travel in the vehicle is when you actually have to get them somewhere, then that's already too hard of a step. You may also want to check with your veterinarian. There could be some medications or supplements you could give your pups. There are some natural calming agents out there that I do sometimes recommend. Adaptil is a plug-in pheromone product, or it comes in a collar and a spray bottle. So it's the same pheromones, or similar. They're technically synthesized, so they're not like real pheromones from the mom. but it's the mother's pheromones that she would be releasing, find it, during her nursing moments with her puppies. So what can be nice for youngsters or even adult dogs as well, is that calming pheromone helps them soothe. You'll also sometimes find that product in fear-free clinics. So like your veterinarian, if they're a free fear certified clinic, they will have those plugins in the rooms in which you're hanging out with your puppy or with your cat or kitten. They have a pheromone-based product for cats as well, which is Feel Away. The other product for the dogs is Adaptil. I have found that can be helpful paired with some of the things that you're slowly working on. Remember, just like with anything, if you were terrified of spiders and me just giving you some chamomile tea is not going to change your fear response to the spider. But if we start practicing at the lower end of the spectrum and try to work it slowly within your comfort range, we can sometimes change those initial responses. What is it, Ebba? Oh, that's okay, no worries. Ebba's having some pineapples in a little container, and of course they're a bit messy, so she said she just spilt, but it's no big deal. So when working with car travel, there's also Rescue Remedy, which is another product that is typically in an eyedropper, and I tend to just put a little bit on a dog treat. I like the original formula. I find it works better. There's also another brand called Composure, which was designed by veterinarians. And that one, for example, is another great option for dogs that are dealing with stress or anxiety. You can do it daily or as needed. But that one is a great option because the product is always the same every batch you get. Sometimes when you're going for some of the hemp or CBD chews or oils, even from batch to batch within the same company, they can vary slightly. So, but that could be an option too. Hemp or CBD oil for dogs that are struggling with anxiety has worked well for some pups and some students too. But I would definitely check with your veterinarian as well. A lot of times when they're little, it can be an inner ear situation where it's not fully developed yet. And because of the movement and they're not moving, kind of like with us, you start to get nauseous, and then that can cause the tummy upset and then the anxiety around the car itself. So, but practicing the car stationary, make it fun to hop in the vehicle, and then you don't get much fun when you hop out. Start building up that maybe certain special chews like a Kong or a Topple or even a bully stick happen while you're just hanging out in the car. You don't even leave the driveway. You spend a few moments and you go back in the house. But if every time we go in the car, they get a tummy upset, they get overwhelmed and scared and panic, then that is what car travel is turning into. So be careful with how we're practicing because even though you're doing it over and over, it might be they're growing into the wrong direction for behavior versus growing out of something. So just things to be careful and cautious about. Nice job checking in, Cuteness. Oh, she's so tired. But again, the beauties are doing a lovely job. I know on Thursday, Zeus will be joining us again. And then for our two little ladies, keep working it. I know they're coming also on Thursday for their last little day. Remember that there could be the option to rejoin another group again later. No pressure. I would recommend that if you're really struggling with something, check in with me so we can make sure the girls and Mr. Z are all heading in the right direction. But again, the lovelies did a great job, so we'll call it a day for the babes and give them some time to relax.